We're joined again this year by a person whose face and name is very familiar to people throughout the Sun Coast because he spent a great part of his early career working there. And that's our old friend, Kevin Negandhi. Kevin, it's great to sit down with you again and talk to you about the Dick Vitale Gala and talk about all the things that are going on in your life since we sat down a year ago. You emceed the gala for the first time last year, stepped into the very large shoes that were left behind by the untimely passing of our friend, John Saunders. So we'll talk about the gala and all of that. But first I want to start with how you've been doing the last year. You have had some great events in your life, career and otherwise, and let's talk about a couple of them. Number one is Tom Brady. Yeah. You went along to what was produced as a E60, the trip of a lifetime, with TB12 himself, Tom Brady, a very private person who let you have access to the time that he spent in Asia. Tell us about that incredible E60 and your experience around that.
Ray, first off, it's great to see you again. It's great to be here and talking about a big deal when it comes to the Dick Vitale Gala and what we're doing in the cause. The Tom Brady story was fantastic just because, again, it's removing the curtain on one of the biggest superstars, I think, not just in America, but around the world, considering that his impact was being felt in Asia, where he was there for a week in Japan, in China, kind of expanding the game of American football. And to see and have the access that we had, to see him interact with many of the people there who are still understanding the game, trying to learn the game and be a part of the game, was pretty cool. So that was a fantastic experience with our E60 crew. The piece, I'm really proud. We had the chance to sit down with them and talk. You know, it was scheduled to be a 25, 30-minute conversation. We went 45 minutes plus, where we talked about literally everything. You know, the comeback, the very famous comeback in Super Bowl 51, where he's at, and his philosophy, and the TB12, of course, when it comes to food and sleep, and what he does to prepare himself as he was getting ready to you know, his 40. He's 40 years old, getting ready for that season. The unknown for a quarterback at his excellence, and then to be the MVP is pretty remarkable. So to get that background on why it works for him and what's different from him, comparing him to other legendary quarterbacks, you got that insight. That was pretty cool.
Your E60 made it clear the manner and extent to which he embraced Eastern culture.
Yes.
Was that surprising to you?
A little bit. I think that I think his. And it actually drew a lot of response. His trainer now, Alex Guerrero, is a guy that embraces that as well. And plus, his agent, Don Yi, is Chinese-American. So Don has played a role in his career in telling him, hey, let's expand. Let's be aware of the outside things outside this country, to expand it to maybe the other side when it comes to China and Japan, and what kind of impact you can have. Under Armour as well has supported that. So my thinking with him was, when we were talking about it, there were a couple references through the years that he talked about, you know, how Bruce Lee looks at things in preparation, you know, the great martial artist. And I wanted to talk to him about that when it comes to mentally preparing and how do you get your body right. And for me, being of Indian descent and aware of, you know, some of the practices of meditation and also treating your body to a certain extent differently, and using sleep and water and then bringing down where, you know, in my culture, you don't eat meat. And he was, you know, basically talking about that idea of, hey, I have the avocado ice cream. I eat a variety of different things that don't have, like, you know, sugar based inside it. I thought that was fascinating, because I think in this culture here in America, many people are starting to embrace the concept of that, but to a certain extent. You have to be disciplined, and you also have to have a cook, a private cook, because it's very tough to have that kind of lifestyle and do it consistently. And being an athlete and changing your whole concept of, it's not just about working out every day. It's not just about weights. It's also about stretching. It's about yoga and being mentally right and also physically right with what you're putting in your body.
Well, we should remind folks that you're a Philadelphia native, a Temple grad, and a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan. We were together in Minneapolis around the Super Bowl earlier this year, and there's no bigger Eagles fan than you. And I couldn't help but think of the juxtaposition of your time with Tom Brady, where you had the chance to reflect with him on Super Bowl 51.
Yes.
And then you're at Super Bowl 52 cheering your brains out to see the Eagles pull off the upset that they did of the of the Patriots.
Right.
So tell me about that.
It's a funny story, too, because in June when I sat down with Tom, before we actually had the cameras rolling, I actually joked with him and I said, you're the reason why I don't have a Super Bowl as a fan. Because let's go back to 2005, you know, in that win in Jacksonville and what the Patriots did beating the Eagles. And he laughed. And it was a good conversation starter about, you know, what we do and how we follow things. So, you know, when I walked out of that stadium in Jacksonville after that Super Bowl loss, I made a promise to myself. And I remember calling my brother that night saying, I will never go to a Super Bowl with the Eagles again. Because it was such a devastating experience, right? And I think I was caught up in the moment.
So you've grown up and matured.
Well, you know, it's so funny, Ray. I held on to that. I really held on to that belief because when they won the NFC Championship game against the Vikings, the Eagles.
And you were there for that as well.
I was there for that, and it was amazing.
Our mutual friend Jake Tapper.
Jake Tapper was sitting next to us.
I saw a picture of the two of you together.
Yeah.
And I'm not being an Eagles fan. I was cheering for the Eagles on your and Jake's
I appreciate that, Ray. And the experience was fantastic. And I didn't even think about the Super Bowl. I got a couple texts that day saying, you're going. And I talked to my wife, and I'm like, I don't. And she was like, you're going.
That was in Philadelphia.
That was in Philadelphia. And I was like, yeah, I gotta go to the Super Bowl. I got to find a way. And it was 100% worth it. It was the greatest thrill. But I will tell you, Ray, when Brady and the Patriots had the ball with 2:20 left.
That's right. Everybody in the stadium, everybody watching on TV knew what was going to happen.
We were all waiting for a drive, a vintage moment. The Eagles had not stopped the Patriots on any drives in that entire second half. For it to happen and Brandon Graham to force the fumble, amazing. And then when they got the ball with inside a minute to go, I turned to my college best friend and I say, well, when they score here and get the two-point conversion, at least we're going into overtime. I was already mentally prepared, and that gives you the insight of how Philadelphia fans are, that we weren't prepared to win. We wanted to win, but we were also bracing ourselves that if this were to happen and we were to fall short, we were mentally making sure we weren't going to hit the ground hard.
Let's go from Tom Brady in the E60 to the Super Bowl. To another great assignment that you had for the second time, and that was hosting the National Spelling Bee.
Yes.
You've already reminded folks that you are an Indian American.
Yes. Yeah.
You were the first person, we talked last year, the first person to host, to have the job you have on a national sports network of Indian American descent.
Yeah.
So for you to host the Spelling Bee, which many of us refer to as the Indian Super Bowl.
Yeah, it is.
I think 18 of the last 20 winners have been young Indian American kids. I remember seeing a story where you, in your role for ESPN covering the Spelling Bee, that you were in newspapers in India.
Yes, I was.
So what does that mean, that assignment? That's got to be a lot of fun.
It means the world to me because it gives me the chance to also explain, you know, I think perceptions are made easily without investigating. It gives me the opportunity to explain that these young, you know, women and men, and you could call them boys and girls considering their age level. We're talking about, you know, we had a 5-year-old on the main stage for this, for that big event in the early days of the competition to, you know, 12-year-old, 13-year-olds competing. They're just like the athletes that we know who are competing and going to practice at 10, 11, 12 years old for football, soccer, baseball, basketball,
the
hockey,
training,
tennis.
The discipline, a lot of the same, isn't it?
It's the same concept. It's learning how to do something, doing it every day consistently, having your parents or family involved, having coaches and teachers. It's coming back the next day and doing it again. It's also then doing this in an environment where you're with other people. And these kids learn through the process at different competitions who their friends are. So their competitors suddenly become friends. And we've seen that in many American sports that, hey, yeah, I know that person. We played together on the same team. And then years later, now you're competing against them. It's the same exact concept. And then to extend it even further, it's a competition. And when we watch sports here in America, you're going to a Little League park. You're going to, you know, watch Pop Warner. You're going to the YMCA watching a basketball game. You're going to AAU watching basketball. You're seeing the same type of competition, dealing with pressure, succeeding, understanding that you have to rely on yourself, You could even talk about, when individuals just practice just on golf by themselves or tennis, that you're by yourselves and you look to your coaches to help you. It's the same concept.
Yeah.
And I try to stress that many of these families understand that this is the gateway to, I think, expanding everything for the family down the road, generationally. So knowledge here, coming from an Indian American background, my parents taught me that education is your key to literally everything, unlocking everything and walking through every single door. And that's what's being stressed here when we do the National Spelling Bee.
Well, it's a great tradition this country has, and to see you holding down that role is fun.
Thank you.
Let's talk about a role that you took on for the first time since we last talked, Kevin, and that is the studio host for college football.
Yeah.
Mac Brown, Booger McFarland. I think you might do it in this very studio.
Yes, we do.
All college football season long. With my association with ABC, that's especially meaningful to me because you're working the games that appear on the ABC platform.
Yep.
How fun was that experience for you this past year?
Ray, it was the best. I've never had more fun. It was a dream come true for me, and following the footsteps of John Saunders in that same capacity as well. John was a guy that I grew up watching, idolizing, and also aware that when I came here, he became a mentor to me. And I knew that when you're behind that desk doing that, it's a big deal, not just to me. It's a big deal to the company, but it's a big deal to football fans around the country. Saturdays are made for football.
Yeah.
And to be a host of the prime time of game, and you're at halftime and you're in the middle of all that, there's nothing better.
Much has been made of the ratings issues that the NFL had this year with a lot of their games on the various networks, but college football on ESPN and ABC was never better than it was last year.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Dick Vitale Gala. You're going to be back in Sarasota on May 11th. Once again to serve as MC. It's a special year because it's all around the 25th anniversary. On March 4th, we observed the 25th anniversary of Jimmy V's famous speech.
Yes.
At the very first ESPYs. And it was also it's where the V Foundation was formally launched. On April 28th, we just observed the 25th anniversary of his untimely passing. So it's the Dick Vitale Gala, to me, represents everything about Jimmy V's message,
yes,
his famous speech. Because when you go to the gala, you laugh,
yep,
you think, and you cry.
Absolutely.
Tell me what it means to you to be the MC of such a special event.
It's humbling, and I'm honored to be a part of it because you're sharing stories, and stories that I think everybody that in that audience that they can connect to. Because if you go to a lot of benefits or galas or charity functions, sometimes you go through the motions. And everybody that's inside that room, they're there for a reason. They know why they're there. They're there to support and change things. And to see the passion that Dick has to carry, Jim's legacy, the family's legacy, I'm blown away by it. It's one of those that when you experience it and you watch it and you see it with your own eyes and you hear the stories, you can't turn your back. This is not one of those things you forget. It becomes part of your DNA. And I was a part of it just because, living in Sarasota at the time, working at ABC7, I've covered the event. I've been a part of the event inside just as a guest. And now to host it, it's a big honor. It's something I take seriously. And, like you said, it's all the emotions. And you hear the kids' stories at the end of the night. That's why we're there. And it's a quick reminder on when you hear the fight that they have to go through. I also think it's a big night for the families because the families go through so much of the unknown and so much of the unspeakable things day in and day out, and trying to show their courage and support for their kids and making sure they're the rock. It gives them the chance that we can say, we understand and we are here for you.
Every year, Dick and Lorraine honor some of the truly A-list names in sports, and this year's no exception. The honorees include your colleague here at ESPN, Mike Greenberg, the University of Michigan football coach Jim Harbaugh, and Florida State University basketball coach Leonard Hamilton. I was just with Dick recently, and he told me that he has a couple other special honorees this year. V Foundation Spirit Awards are going to be presented to Chris Berman, who was an honoree last year but couldn't make it because of a tragedy involving his wife, and also Holly Rowe, who basketball fans know for her great work on the sideline covering that and other sports. But it promises to be another great night.
Yeah, and you know, him bringing up those people, I'm so glad, because they're part of the fiber at ESPN, but they're also part of the reason why we watch, and they're a reminder because we all love what we do. We are all fans of the games and fans of sport. And to celebrate that we are lucky to do what we're doing, it's also an understanding that we're all a big family. And that's the one thing I love about what Dick and Lorraine do in that night, leading up to it, also the family of ESPN. And, you know, when we talk about Chris and what happened to him, everybody came together because we're fully aware of the impact. And we also know what Boomer and his family mean to the family of ESPN. And then what Holly's gone through, I mean, her fight, and sometimes it's a very public fight. You know, Holly has gone to social media saying, I apologize how I look tonight. And first off, she shouldn't be apologizing. And secondly, she does not change every time she's on TV because she knows that she has a job to do. And I love that about Holly because Holly carries a certain spirit. And I'm really happy that we have Mike there and we could celebrate him that night. It's going to be a very special night.
Did Dick share with you what his goal is this year?
No, but I'm sure he will.
Well, I'll be happy to let you in on that secret because they raise the bar every year, and this year it's $3.5 million. He and Lorraine, through their gala, this is the 13th. So in the previous 12, cumulatively, they've raised $21 million now. And as you know, those dollars are specifically earmarked for pediatric cancer research and related services. That's
absolutely
pretty special.
Yeah, it's special. And when you witness everything, and you see the fight and the kids' stories, and they come up on stage, and you see kids from the past come back, and you see that they're stronger and the smiles in their faces. But at the same time, when you hear that they are sometimes stronger than us as adults in the audience, you walk away saying, oh, man, why was I worried about, you know, that red light? Why was I stressed about this? Why was I concerned about something so trivial about, you know, that I got the wrong coffee? Or it puts everything into perspective. And a night like that, you can learn a lot from the kids that are in the audience that come up on stage.
What Dick calls his all-courageous team. It is a team that he would like to stop having to coach someday, and that's what that night is all about. What Jimmy V challenged us to do 25 years ago was to find a cure for cancer, and through the efforts of Dick and Lorraine, the honorees, and yourself, that day I know is coming.
And I want to say one other thing, because I think you would agree to this. Dick Vitale is a Hall of Fame broadcaster,
yes, he is.
Hall of Fame former NBA coach, well known in the business. This, for him and Lorraine, is their greatest legacy.
No question.
Year in, year out, they're always there for the V Foundation.
Couldn't agree more. Nobody has done more to continue Jimmy V's legacy than Dick Vitale, and the legacy that he and Lorraine will leave behind in their own right is a special one.
Absolutely.
It's going to be great to have you back on the Sun Coast.
Yes, can't wait.
May 11th.
Yep.
Looking forward to it, Kevin.
Thank you, Ray.